Welcome back to Event Advice by Crowdcoms. I'm Will, the product director, joined again by Matt, the managing director. In this episode, we're going to be talking about what to include in your event registration form. Now, this is going to be, this could be anything. Depends how complex your requirements are. But let's unpack what the differences are in forms and what you should be looking out for when you're actually designing that form.
It's a really good idea. The first thing to consider is, what do you need to collect? Yeah. What is absolutely imperative for you to collect? It's the same when you have data capture on a website. I want to get your information. I would like to know what you're interested in, but I'm balancing that very carefully with actually the importance of just knowing that you're interested. Yeah. And it's the same with an event registration. I want to know that you're attending. I might need to know your food requirements because I've got to put that in place beforehand. I need to know if you're booking a hotel, but I don't necessarily need to know all your session choices at the point of that initial registration. Yeah. So we're trying to get that person to attend the event. That's the driver. Can we do 2 stages? So it might be, the first thing is what is really, really crucial to collect.
It's about not being greedy with that data, isn't it? It's about not, when you've got lots of stakeholders asking to collect as much as possible, turn them into sales leads after the event, things like that, you can start to think, okay, what is going to actually, what could I get? So yeah. you go really broad. You ask for phone numbers, dates of birth, all those sorts of things, like to be able to segment your audience if you want to later on. But really, when you're talking about good UX in forms, you are talking about, right, okay, let's pare that back to be the absolute bare minimum. Do I actually need to ask that? And if I need to ask it, if it's gonna bring up that question in the user's mind as they're going through the form, tell them why you're asking for that. So if you need their phone number, say, we won't use this for marketing. So when we designed our form builder, we deliberately put in, you can't just put in the question, you can put in some help text around it, like a hint or a tip. And you can also add in like contextual video, contextual images, and a bit more text if you need to. So yes, you want to keep it as simple as possible and really try and make sure that you roll back. Review your form a few times. Go as broad as you want. Review it with your stakeholders. Test it, exactly. Put it in front of people. Say, the bits where they're stopping and going, hang on a minute. Do you really need to know that?
Well, much the same in the way that when we were developing the technology, that we split tested a variety of different forms where we looked at, the accessibilities and how they improved the completion rates or completion percentage of forms or completion time of that form. So I think we've done a fair amount of the work in the testing that we've done, but that, I'm not going to sit there and say that it's going to be perfect for your audience. So test it, sample it.
Put it in front of people. Absolutely.
It sometimes can be suffocating, can't it? Having to have too much information. We talked about accessibility features. They certainly help, but they're not the only route. You do have to be mindful of the data you're collecting.
I think doing it in stages is a really good bit of advice. You don't necessarily, an expression of interest to start with. And then it improves engagement across the event as well, doesn't it? If you are, rather than sort of putting a massive barrier in front of people from the outset, a big form with, dozens and dozens of questions, just get their expression of interest first. Then, we know you're attending the event. What sessions would you like to go to?
Why not do it? If you're doing it in stages, you can also, and there'll be people who disagree with this. There's various different ways to do it, and we support all of them. So, but if you don't need to make session choices in registration, allow them to make them in the app nearer the event, where you're going to have greater session information. You might not know the speakers. You might not know the session content. In the event app, we can give them more information. It's not just about getting data, it's actually about displaying what's happening, giving them more information. So choosing when you ask the questions and leveraging different pieces of technology within the suite could be a really positive way to approach it.
Yeah, so in our app, for example, you can choose your sessions afterwards, can't you? You can choose hotels. You can do all of that after the fact. You don't need to do it all up front, do you?
No, and people worry about capacities, but if you're covering that off in the app anyway, you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
If the two things talk, you can do them in tandem. So that, there's a variety of ways, but be mindful of what you have to collect, and then be mindful of how you display what you are looking to collect, and don't be afraid of doing it in stages. I think that would be really critical.
So we've talked about what you should and shouldn't include. Let's talk about what you can include if you want to.
Yeah,
So let's talk about question types.
Yeah, that's the key bit for me. What have we done to enable people to have the flexibility of what we just discussed? I'm going to turn that one on you. You built it.
Okay. So you want all the standard things. You want plain text, free text fields. You want drop-down questions. You want multiple select. You want single select. You want to be able to, obviously you want to be able to add validation to anything you want. You want to be, image upload questions, for example. Being able to upload documents. It might be an abstract. It might be a submission, for example, to actually speak at the event. It could be anything. You obviously want your ticketing. Ticketing questions. Now, to blow our own trumpet a little bit, just for a couple of minutes, that is somewhere we've tried to bring something a little bit different. Lots of registration providers either put their ticketing up front or at the end.
Okay.
So you make all those choices. The way we decided to build it was to make it like a question type, so like one of the others. So you can dot it anywhere you want in the form.
Yeah.
So if you've got merchandise to sell, or if you've got sessions to sell, or if you've got dinner reservations to make, whatever you want to ticket, you can do that at different stages. So how we were talking about a moment ago, showing the right information to the right people at the right time, and also making sure you've got all the abilities to do the things that make that experience as nice as possible for people.
First video we talked about the basics. What you're referencing here is like flexibility that enables complex things to be simple.
Yeah.
And it's about that importance of flexibility is absolutely critical, because every single event is different. Every single planner will approach registration seemingly in a different way. Yeah. And it meant that when we were gathering the kind of the requirements of registration, it was absolutely vast. It was a big project to unpick it all and try and flip it on its head and say, okay, well, what are the crucial bits? Which order do we do it in? What do we prioritise? Why are they doing that? How can we actually flip that and do it in a slightly different way? And the flexibility around question types is absolutely critical to that.
The other thing with the data that comes out of those questions is you don't want to have to do the same thing twice. So, and you don't want to add more work to the whoever's organising the event. So, for example, if you are asking a question about, do you need a hotel room? You want that to map to a group of people who are staying in the hotel, for example. So you don't want it to just spit out a spreadsheet that you have to take away and then organise all of that at the back end, so they don't see the menu item which is for the hotel guests or dinner reservations, whatever it might be. You want those choices to be instant. So you want, as soon as, let's say you've got registration set up, you've got your form ready, and your event app is also ready. Now it's not common practice, obviously, but to go from registration, get your email confirmation, and then go straight into the app to start making some choices, download it, start doing that. You want that personalisation to be instantaneous, don't you?
You do, and I mean, quite often the registration will form a lot of the content in your app. It will drive a lot of the content if you do it in the right way. If you get the most pertinent information, it's going to be pulling into those custom fields and generating that content for your app. It very much works in tandem.
Let's talk about access requirements. So when you're talking about forms and registration, you don't want the wrong people seeing the wrong things. Sometimes it's a public app, sometimes it's a private event, a conference.
Yeah.
What would you advise people when they are building that sort of thing?
Just look at the type of event. They will know their security requirements. They will know their kind of permissions requirements around the different groups. And I think it's really useful to consider your user flow, the user journey, the different pillars beforehand, and have a good understanding of that journey for those different types, and then decide upon that top level security and those different layered security. So top level, if you're on the list, you can see registration. And then when I say the surface level ones, that's I'm in this group, I see this version, I don't have access to this, I can't attend these sessions, I can attend these. So it's security, and then it's kind of more permission-based stuff as you go down through the layers.
Yeah. So you're talking about actually being able to access it at all. So it might be a public site, it might not be a public site, and then when you get into the form, you're only seeing the information that you need.
Exactly.
Okay. I think that covers it for this video. To be honest, I think we can probably leave it there for this week. We will be diving into more detail about event registration later in the series, but for now we'll see you again next time.